Hey guys, it's Roderick. I'm here with the review of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 13, Episode 4, Housewarming History Lesson. So let's get into the kiki. So first I want to give props up to the editors/writers of this show, because one thing that has become very crystallized in this episode is that what they're really doing is really creating a Teresa arc. So if you watch my other videos of talking about character arcs are when a fictional character in a narrative starts at one point and they end at another point. Traditionally, that character has been changed in some way by the antagonist that they've encountered or whatever. What the writers and editors are doing for this show is really giving us a Teresa arc, right? And by delving into some of the past things of which we're seeing, I would not be surprised if this is Teresa's last season on The Real Housewives of New Jersey. I think that they are really setting up for really the Teresa arc. And if you've watched the show for the 13 seasons like I have, and kind of seen kind of where Teresa began and where she is kind of looks like she's about to land in this episode, I think this will be a perfect season for Teresa to bow out and say, you know what, girls, I've given you 13 episodes, 13 years of my lives. This will be done. But we'll kind of get into that point. But I wanted to let you know this season is really teaming up to be a Teresa arc episode. So we start off with kind of the aftermath of the guys' night out with like the wives with their phones, like taping their husbands coming in drunk, which I just thought was hilarious. Notice we did not see a Joe Gorga, because we all know Joe Gorga showed up, started taking his clothes off, and wanted to run up in Melissa's guts as soon as he got home drunk or whatever like that, which I'm not mad at him, but I just thought that was funny because we all know how Joe Gorga like moves or whatever. So I thought that was really, really good. So then the next day we get, Louis filling in Teresa about what happened at the guys' night, and then that kind of contemporaneously we see, Joe filling in Melissa was going on. And I have to giving Teresa credit where credit is due. She seems to have found the perfect balance between creating good television and creating authentic moments, right? Because the fact is that she had the perfect balance of seasoned outrage, but also recognizing that what this kind of scene was for, right? So Teresa really has, you really get to really see in this episode how Teresa has stepped up her game about knowing how to create genuine television moments and not kind of going over the top, whatever like that, compared to her acolyte, Jennifer Aydin, who is, once again, is really at where we saw Teresa season 2, right? So that's a really good foil. So if you look at Jennifer Aydin and you look at Teresa and you realize that Jennifer Aydin is really where Teresa was season 2, season 1, and then where she was, and then as opposed to where Teresa has gone now, right? So Teresa is hurt, and I really don't discount the fact Teresa is not hurt about what's happened with her brother. I did say, as I continue to say, that I have now decided that Joe Gorga is the reason this situation is continuing, right? Because at any point, because what we see is that Joe just refuses to step up to the plate and hold himself and Teresa accountable for the parts they played, right? So Joe just wants to move forward and say he wants to move forward, but not really move forward, but still be hurt about something in the past, and then you can't change what happens in the past, which at the crux of the issue means Joe can't forgive Teresa. Because if you're unable to move past what has happened to you with a person, it means you can't forgive them. Because unforgiveness is really your inability to accept the past for as it was, right? So the fact is that Joe just has not gotten to a point where he can really forgive Teresa. That's why he can't be around Teresa, right? What I also, however, don't think is a good idea, as we see later in the show, is the way that Teresa continues to place her children involved or in the middle of what's happened, even though they are somehow collaterally affected by it and kind of brought in with the talking about the podcast, whatever. I just don't like that look. I don't know. I was just raised in a way that children just don't get in grown folk business, even though the children are adults or younger, older adolescents, and they want their mother to be happy. I believe that Teresa's song or statement to her children should always be, that's your uncle, you should love him. Whatever we're going through is with us, but that is your uncle, those are your cousins, they are your family, right? So I just think that, and so Teresa, so I realize again, a lot of this is the show, but this is where I talk about hawking your family for reality television. And I just don't think that, I just don't like that look. I just don't like that look, because if you look at Joe and Melissa, whenever they talk about Teresa, whenever they talk about what's going on, they make their children leave. And I just think that that is what Teresa should do. And it's not an age thing, it's a respect thing. Because if we go back to last season, there's no reason that Gia should have ever talked. The only reason Gia was ever able to talk to Joe like she did was because she knew her mother would not punish her or reprimand her for talking to her uncle like that, right? So that's because, so that is the problem. And I just think that if you talk about keeping this family, keeping the Gorga, Giudice, whatever Louis' last name is, together, you have to not have the children involved and say children being off limits does not also mean that it means that you don't talk about the children. It also means you don't involve the children in the conflict. And that's why I just think that Teresa has a bad look for. But again, you got to break some eggs and make this reality omelet. And these parties and these weddings ain't paying for themselves. So, it is what it is, right? So Joe's talking to, Melissa, and he's like, oh my God, and Joe's whole thing is he just can't help his emotions. He can't help how he feels. I'm calling bullshit on all that, because you could totally help your emotions and you could totally help how you feel. But here's the question, right? And this is where I have to kind of give Joe and Melissa the side eye. If you took the Teresa conflict out, right? If Teresa were to say, you know what, Melissa, you mean my wedding? I'm sorry, mea culpa. If Teresa were to make everything right, what storyline would Joe and Melissa have? So this is why it's looking kind of suspect, and I don't want to devalue or denigrate how Joe or Melissa may feel, but it's just coming off to me that they keep like Dr. Frankenstein and keeping this dead thing alive just for the sake of television, so they can be on television, or to keep the storyline, as opposed to deading it and moving on, right? And so that's the part of it that just kind of looks very suspect to me, that I'm just like, because at so many points we saw in this episode, Joe could have resolved this. The Battle of the Gorgas could have ended in this episode, but Joe chose not to. And the question is why? And the fact that him still being residually hurt just is not ringing true. Because that's your sister. You could go to, because when Teresa says, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I'm just going to get the Battle of the Gorgas out the way. So when Teresa says to him, hey, do you want to talk, do you want to talk about something? That is your opportunity then to squash it. Yes, I feel some sort of way about A, B, C, and D. Teresa's like, but A, B, C, and D happened, and I told you what happened. They could have had the whole conversation. They could have had the final battles of the Gorgas then and there during that telephone conversation. But Joe chose not to. He's like, no, I just want to go past. If you say you want to go past and act like everything and say that everything's okay, then your behavior needs to be in alignment with that, and he's not. You're saying you want everything to be okay, but everything in your behavior is saying that you're not okay. So when somebody asks you if you're not okay, and then Teresa did something else that we have not seen her done 13 seasons, she said, is there anything I can do to make you okay? And Joe says nothing, right? So then at this point, I am now, like, I know I have my Teresa biases. I am now on Teresa now. Everything after that conversation that you do, I'm not going to be, that's on you, because I didn't apologize. I didn't open the channels of dialogue. I've done everything I can to possibly make this relationship work, and you keep not showing up because you don't want to get engaged. You don't want to have to take responsibility, because it's not going to be a one-sided you did. It's going to be you did, but you did. You did, but you did. Knowing at the end of the day, the resolution is going to be, I still love you. We're going to move forward. We're going to make these corrections, and we're going to make this work. But Joe doesn't want to do that dirty work. And I don't know whether it's because he does not have the emotional capability to handle more than two emotions at the same time, or whether he just doesn't have the, or whatever, or whether he's so deeply hurt. I think he wants to make us believe that he's just so deeply hurt, he just can't bring himself to have that conversation situation, when the fact is that most straight men just have limited emotional capacities. Most straight men only care about two things: their money and their pussy. And the fact is, the third thing other that, right? So we'll say Joe cares about his money, his wife, his family, his kids, and this Teresa thing is probably taxing the fuck out of him because emotionally he doesn't have the bandwidth to deal with more than two things at the same time. And most grown men of Joe's age have to deal with more than two things at the same time. So that's why I'm just really, at this point, I'm skewing more towards, there's a lot of fugazi going on with this here because and I have to give Teresa credit. She knows how to play the long game, right? Because she knows that Bravo ain't gonna be paying for no wedding and whatever if there's not some kind of conflict. So she's gonna keep letting this go. But Teresa's also smart enough to know her brother for his works. Because if you've been watching the show long enough, remember at Adriana's christening, Joe got in a whole ass fight with Teresa's husband while their parents are still alive and there. So Teresa knows that if she doesn't play nice and try to squash this, he will show up at her wedding and ruin her whole ass wedding. So again, she's really playing the long game. But at some point, I do suspect in this season, she's going to be done fucking playing with them and playing nice with them. And she's going to be like, and I'm just about to be done. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, right? So then Dolores and her mother. The mother comes over. The mother had cake for breakfast. I always think that's like so cute because Dolores is like, I'm not trying to fight my mother by having cake. I just want her to be well. You could tell that it was a kind of like one of those, it's a pacing scene that was inserted into the show that kind of like, because there's, drama throughout this episode. So it kind of like slows it down. And once again, I have to give Dolores credit for the way she's handling this Frank and Polly situation. And from her perspective, it makes sense. She's like, first of all, that confessional dress was fabulous. That was a fabulous confessional dress. I was all the way for it. But what Dolores is saying is, I have given him 27 years of my life, when he did deserve it. This is my time. It's my turn, if you know that Aretha Franklin song. So that pretty much is the song that Dolores is singing. And she's consistent with that. And she's like, they don't have to be friends. They just have to be nice. Frankie's like, I just want them to get along. The mother didn't say nothing. Right? The mother's like, I like Paulie because he cares about you. The mother pretty much don't give a fuck if Frank likes it or not, right? Because in the mother's eyes, Frank done got too many of Dolores' tears as it is, right? So I, again, have to give Dolores kudos as to how she's navigating this, right? I think a conversation would probably be appropriate. But again, we got 13, another 8 episodes left. So I'm sure there will be a conversation when it comes ahead. But I like the way Dolores is navigating this, right? Like, fuck Frank and fuck his feelings, right? Because if Frank really wanted to be with Dolores and they kind of have a second shot, he would have done that way before. The fact is, I think Frankie is right, is that he was used to that Dr. Mike Paulie relationship where he could kind of like still latch on and Dolores get her sexual needs from, Dr. Mike, you get her emotional fulfillment from Frank. And Paulie's like, I'm all the man that you need. I'm not the one for this. And so I like that. And I do notice that Frank and Paulie have yet to be in the same spaces together since they've been filming. And now after 2 occurrences of that, I'm smelling something going on, right? I'm smelling something going on. So either Frank is like, I don't want to be there, or Paul will be there, or also the fact of Frank and Paulie aren't cast members, right? Dolores is the cast member. So typically when you have like a husband who's on there, whatever, the husband shows up and, it's up to the wife cast member to break off the husband some bread for participating in the show. So since Dolores is like, I ain't paying both you motherfuckers this season, so we gonna space this out, right? So now, Frank, you got a bye-bye. Paulie can get a little yum, but, Frank, you ain't gonna keep getting to kind of break it off to whatever, because they're not paying Frank, right? Joe, Frank, Bill, Evan, they're not cast members. They're not getting paid. Their wives are getting paid, and it's up to the husband and the wives to negotiate how that's going to work out between them, right? So for like Jennifer Aydin, her husband would be like, you know what? I don't need your motherfucking money. You keep that so you can stay the fuck out my pocket, right? Let that buy you some of your Chanel dresses and shit like that, right? Melissa and Joe, it may be, okay, cool. That's Melissa's new chandeliers. For Marge and Joe, it'd be like, okay, these finishing, like however that relationship is. I highly suspect that Dolores is like, oh, both you motherfuckers ain't gonna be in my pocket. So Frank, yeah, we'll have to see you a little bit more. Paulie's on the show. Paulie's my storyline. You could pop up later on or whatever, and I'll break you off like 10 grand for the season or whatever like that. So that's just so you know, that is what I highly suspect is why we ain't seen a whole lot of Frank, even though I enjoy Frank, and I think Frank is fun. So now we get to Jennifer and her husband. So let me go in it. First of all, it is obviously apparent, as I stated, that Jennifer lacks emotional intelligence. But what we also have now decided is that Jennifer has watched all the previous seasons of The Real Housewives of New Jersey and is either trying to step into those old Teresa's shoes, right? Because remember, they're paid by their appearance by episode. If there's no conflict, there probably won't be an appearance. Therefore, they don't have the same amount of money. If they're not a fan favorite, they don't bring conflict, they don't bring the drama, they typically will be dropped from the show. Jackie. So I think Jennifer has gone back and studied, enrolled in the Teresa Gorga Judice, school of reality television, and is really trying to be the Hermione, but is showing up looking like Ron Weasley, right? Because that whole scene with her husband was cringeworthy, right? So here we go. Bill says to her, so she's like, oh, the son wants to have a prom bus or whatever for the prom. Every time Jennifer talks to her husband, it's her spending her husband's motherfucking money, right? So now let's assume that she's not her money. People are like, oh, how do you know she's not spending her money? Let's assume it's not her money. We'll assume that's his money. Let's assume it's coming out of her housewife money, her savings, her dowry, her trust fund, whatever, right? Bill's like, look at her like every time something comes up with the children, you're using money as a way to make it feel better, right? And so we get the Bill eyebrow raise, right? So then her response is, well, I wouldn't really be doing this in a confessional. She's like, well, I really wouldn't be doing this to make the kids had a really rough year last year, and I wouldn't be doing this because of what you did, right? So then I'll go, okay, well, that makes sense. And then Bill goes, well, that's really not about the kids, that's about you. Hello, Bill gets the MVP award of the episode, right? Because what Bill is trying to get his wife to see is you're trying to make the children feel better about a situation you feel bad about that you have not resolved, right? So the kids, I think, not to say the kids weren't hurt, the kids weren't affected, but Jennifer is overcompensating because she feels bad. It's like how parents do when they get divorced and you have one parent or both parents start lavishing the kids with gifts and presents because they feel bad because they got divorced. That's what Jennifer's doing because she has not emotionally navigated the situation. I think the truth is she's navigated the infidelity. She cannot navigate the public embarrassment because that is what matters more. I won't say that's what matters more. I think that's what hurts the most at the present point. I think that's what's been magnified the most, right? I think that if this had happened in public and private, or have it in private, Jennifer could probably navigate it better, but having it put out there into the world like that has shown that Jennifer has reached the upper limits of her emotional capability to navigate this situation, right? But also, Jennifer's also a very limited, emotionally immature person because Jennifer then goes to say, I feel like you're not there for me. I feel like, you're always never taking my side. And why can't you ever stick up for me? And, whatever. And then Bill goes, well, do you always want things on your terms? And so immediately she spins to 180 and goes back to talking around about like, well, why, this is just so exhausting, whatever. Like Bill is trying to rationally talk to his wife because what Bill wants is his wife to be fully emotionally developed and capable of raising his children and teaching them how to properly diffuse conflict. Jennifer wants someone from the Teresa Book School, season 1, who is diehard loyal to him. And she's like, why can't you just gas me up? And Bill wants to say, because bitch, you don't need to be gassed up because if you were emotionally intelligent and mature, you would have walked away from that motherfucking conversation, got the fucking car, take me home, blew me, and then we both could have gone to fucking bed. But you trying to do histrionics and causing a fight with somebody who, thank God Dolores prayed that day and didn't dog walk her all the way out her fucking house. I was just like, how did you think, like, Jennifer is just very immature, and you could tell that she comes from this socialized way of thinking that she's entitled to like the unbridled, unencumbered affection and support of a man, and she thinks that criticism is a sign of not affection, right? And the fact is that she's like, I feel like I'm not in love. The fact is, Bill may be working 50,000 hours a week to pay for this house that you and your children can play basketball in and do whatever. Like, you don't get to have it both ways, right? You don't get to have a man who, a great lifestyle, and he works all the time, but then he's never home or you don't feel mostly available. If you want that, marry you a Rockefeller. Marry you somebody who has family money. Otherwise, Bill works for a living. He's tired. You know what I'm saying? So Jennifer's just very emotional, mature, and she's going to fuck around and find out that what happens in these type of situations, because Bill is like, he's about 17 minutes to be done with this chick. He looks like, if he was not a traditional Turkish man, if he was just like a regular motherfucker from America who wasn't all about that, he would have, literally, we would hear next season that Bill's leaving Jennifer, because there is no upside to this situation of Jennifer showing up every season, showing her whole ass, and Bill, every time he just get him a warm piece of pizza in his mouth, he got to leave a party because Jennifer done showed up. Every scene, every party, Jennifer is showing that ass. That would get exhausting all the time, right? So, and the fact is she's also shown that she can't be talked to in a situation, that she just goes irrational. Bill be like, I'm gonna find me another chick who ain't on the Housewives, right? And you know what? You take half of this, I can make up the half that you done took, and find me a bitch who's gonna be totally happier, who's totally rational, right? So don't fuck around, Jennifer. Do not fuck around and find out and have this man get rid of you, right? Because as we heard this week, men are ditching their housewives, willy-nilly this week. So don't fuck around and find out. Now we get Rachel and Jen Fessler. So again, I'm liking the energy Rachel brings. I'm liking what she was, and I'm liking Jen Fessler. Jen Fessler is giving me Ziggy plus, Eileen Davison tease, right? Like, very rational, very straightforward, not with the wall. I think, she's kind of like the friend of the show kind of stage, because she's not with the histrionics. She's kind of probably not with that. I think they want to do it. I think Jersey has a brand of type of people they want to have. And I think Jen Fessler doesn't necessarily fit maybe in the brand of what they want, but she adds the kind of rational, honest, authentic moments that are necessary. So that way the unskilled viewer doesn't immediately dismiss this as being all hocus pocus, right? So when Rachel's recounting her conversation with Jen Fessler about how Jennifer called to apologize, I have to give credit for Jennifer for calling to apologize. That was a big, bold move. A broke clock is right twice a day. She wanted to go in and talk about Dolores, and immediately Rachel's like, no. You're not going to talk about my friend like that. I don't want to be a part of that. And I have to applaud Rachel for that, because that is what loyalty is, right? Loyalty isn't blindly following someone and letting your friend just do whatever. Loyalty is letting somebody know that I am not going to be the appropriate theater for you to talk about my friend. That doesn't mean my friend may not have done something to you that you may feel bad about, but I'm never going to be receptive to you trashing my friend, right? So I have to give Rachel credit for that. So then Jen Fessler goes, well, she called me and wanted to talk to Marge, right? And wanted to talk about Marge. And then we get the flashback later in the episode of this whole thing. Now, if you've been watching the show, this is straight out of Teresa's book, right? Because if you recall, when the Battle of the Manzos was going on, right? When Teresa and Jacqueline was falling out, and ultimately when Teresa and Caroline was falling out, this was the tactic Teresa used to marshal the troops on her side, right? Going to other people, talking, using it as, I just want to give you history or context of the relationship. And what Teresa was able to aptly do was, because at one point it was all the Manzos versus Teresa, right? And who was left standing? Teresa, right? Mind you, Dina was more neutral towards towards neutral to more friends with Teresa. She never really got into the Battle of the Manzos. And Dina was only on like for maybe 1 or 2 seasons, but she wasn't there when the Battle of the Manzos happened. But Teresa was effectively able to take down the Manzos by marshaling all the other castmates to her side under the guise of whenever there were new people coming in, because this was a battle that went on a couple of seasons, I'm just giving you history or context, right? That was Teresa's angle. And by that point, she was able to persuade or at least insinuate that maybe my side is a better side for you, right? Jennifer Aydin fumbled the bag, fumbled the delivery, and the fact is, no one's scared of Jennifer Aydin, right? That's the other thing. Teresa had those girls scared because it was like, well, whose side do I really want to be on, and do I really want to be on Teresa's bad side? These girls don't care about being on Jennifer Aydin's bad side, so that tactic out Teresa books only works if people are scared of you, right? So we get Marge and Dolores. They're looking at stuff for Teresa's housewarming, and they call Melissa, right? So then they talk Melissa, and, you know, again, the Battle of the Gorgas continues, and what they want us to believe is that Melissa really feels bad about, you know, this situation going on with Joe and Teresa, and that she's emotionally affected. Again, I've already stated that Melissa is in the worst situation because she is going to be blamed if this relationship does not repair itself, but there's only so much she can do, right? She can't just drag her husband by his balls and say, go talk to your sister. But Melissa also is going to get some of the blame. Now, I don't think Melissa should have been on a podcast talking about what she did for Teresa and her family, right? So it's even though the statement was true and it was slightly innocuous, Melissa is always going to be that person that people zero in on of that situation. So if I was Melissa, I would either A, get off the show, or B, I'm not going to be involved, right? I would take Teresa out to dinner, be like, you know what? There's been some shit that's happened to us. You've done things you know I don't appreciate, and I'm sure I've done some things you don't appreciate. But at this point, I am going to remove myself from being involved between what's happening between you and your brother. I want you and your brother to be cordial. I want y'all to be a family. I want our children, regardless what happens with you two, to play together. But I am no longer going to be involved in or affected by what happens between you and your brother. And I want you to know that anything that he does, he is doing by him, on him, without any input from me, because every time my statement's going to be, talk to your sister, love your sister, be with your sister. And that'll be the conversation I have with Teresa, right? So that way, because Melissa is always going to be blamed for what's happened, because people are going to look to her and say, well, why don't you tell your husband? Or I know it must be her, or she must be doing this. And she's just always going to be in that bad situation, right? Then we find out, so now we get to Teresa's party. So first of all, I have missed a good Teresa party. Like, Teresa knows how to throw a good party. And we talk about arc and character evolution. Look at some of Teresa's earlier parties. This party was tasteful. It was nice. It was a family. It was a really well done party. I really missed Teresa's parties, right? So Joe bails on the party. And I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, literally, all you had to do was show up, hug your sister, kiss her, hug your nieces. He could have hung out with the guys the whole time, right? That's all you do is just be present, right? And I think that's my problem with Joe Gorga. He does not want to be present, but he wants to complain about someone else's people being okay with him not being present. You just showing up is half the battle, right? And I just got very annoyed with him just like not wanting to show up, not going, didn't even say whatever, which again places Melissa in a really bad circumstance, right? So I just say shame on you. So then, Teresa is with the kids and with Louie, and again, Teresa is bringing the kids in, talking about this, and I just don't like it. I have said it. I'm going to stay on it. I just don't like the way that looks, right? So Melissa shows up, songs Joe. People are showing up. Dolores is singing, the remix of It's My Turn to everybody about Frank and Louie or whatever. And Melissa goes to talk to the girls. And it's this very awkward situation, right? And you don't know what the full conversation is, because whenever Bravo does those kind of like, still shots on one person's face or whatever, because sound can be mixed between two different shots. So just because a person isn't speaking, you hear the sound, doesn't mean that's how the conversation flowed, right? So the problem is, I don't always trust Bravo to be the most truthful or goodwill storyteller in this type of situation. So I don't know what that conversation went, but it looked like it was very awkward. It looked like it was very tense, and I think that, again, Melissa's in the horrible situation of having to do all the heavy lifting for a family that she just married into, that she wasn't born into. So the problem is that she has to do the heavy lifting. I think that she should have said to the girls, look, I know you heard about the podcast. I'm sorry, if you feel some sort of way about it, I would love to take you out to lunch so we can talk about it. You and your sisters are still the most important things to me and Joe's life. Whatever's going on with Joe and your mother does not have to involve us, does not have to involve your cousins. We are still a family regardless of what's going on. And I have yet to hear that from any adult talking to the children, and it just really annoys me, right? So, then we get, Louis does the toast, right? And, we get ready to do the toast and do whatever. And then we have Teresa says, like, you all are our chosen family. And I'm sorry, like, at this, I told you, Teresa knows how to play the long game. And the fact is, she has done everything to get her brother to be there. Her brother does not show up. So yeah, it hurts, right? It really, really hurts. Because earlier, Melissa's like, oh, she's just, you feel like you're being discarded and she wants to really be with Louis' family. Well, Joe, you're not showing up, right? Quit, I don't know. The comment was a bad comment. I understand why Teresa made the comment, and I understand Melissa's reaction to the comment. So again, 3 of these things can all be understandable, can all be recognized. It's not saying any of them are right or appropriate, but they fit within the realm of reason of why Teresa would make a statement about chosen family as opposed to born-in family, why Melissa had that statement, why Melissa felt some way about her statement, and why, again, Melissa had that kind of whatever. So now, at this point in the evening, Teresa either circulated and said, okay, bitches, you got to pay for these. Like, Bravo ain't giving no free parties out, right? Bravo ain't just paying for lights and canapes and pastas and girls in a bubble. This party has to pay for itself. So you know what, bitches? Get the motherfucking work, right? And I appreciate that, because first we get Danielle confronting Jackie. And I'm not a Jackie fan, so automatically I'm going to go for Danielle anyway. And the fact is, Jackie did look her up and down. Jackie is just bitter because one of these girls took her spot, right? So she can't really say that, but it's whatever, right? So Danielle and Jackie get into it, and the whole talk with the hands. And again, I'm liking Danielle, right? Danielle's like, I'm from Staten Island, I talk with my hands, bop, 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 boop. And again, it's that whole talking about somebody and you're within earshot. That irks me. God is still working on me, but that would drive me straight from 0 to 100 immediately, because you're not going to talk about me when I can hear you talking about me, right? So, fuck Jackie. Going on, so then we get Jennifer Aydin and Margaret. And again, Margaret's statement has been consistent. If you told me you're over it, act like you're over it. But Jennifer keeps bringing this up. Now, I think that Jennifer brought it up. At this point, Jennifer is saying, I brought it up in the context because I called, asking for counseling, and whatever. And Bravo did a really sneaky editing trick with the Jennifer Aydin thing, right? So if you go back and watch the fight, when Jennifer says that when Rachel's like, well, you called me because you wanted to talk about Dolores, you get Dolores' reaction because Dolores is in the frame, right? And Dolores is like, what? And then we get later Dolores drinking water, acting like, I don't know what's going on. And then we get Dolores again being angry, right? So what they did is they just flipped the chronology of that scene to put in a space, because I think both were Dolores' continuous reactions, but they just put in. So again, Bravo does a lot of sneaky editing to try to tell a story, but it doesn't always reflect the actual continuity of how the events have actually occurred, right? Plus, Bravo is notorious for having a scene that starts at looks like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and by the time it's over, it looks like it's midnight because you can see the lights in the background. They've had to put up to light the party, which means that entire coverage, which is the time of filming that has taken place for a very long time because it's summertime, right? So the days are a little bit longer. So the fact is, this party were, even though on television it looked like it clocked for about probably 17 minutes, that party probably went on for 3 hours, right? And this is the footage that we got from the party. So anyway, Jennifer Aydin's getting riled up, and she's going in and she's taking on, Rachel, and her and Margaret going at it or whatever like that. And Dolores is like, don't bring me involved. And all of a sudden, Dolores does get involved. And we just literally see, it was just very clear, two things. One, Jennifer Aydin just wants, she's taking her pages, she's studying her Teresa manual, she's trying to make good television, bring good conflict. And the second thing is that I don't think she just feels loved and supported in her life, right? I think that on an authentic moment, I think that what we saw is just a woman who just, she's fighting everybody she's coming engaged with. And people who do that are people who feel like they've been really wronged, right? And so I think is a good step for her to talk about marriage counseling. I think that's a great thing, because I think she needs some professional help to emotionally maneuver through what she's been through, because she's just acting out. Part of it, she's kind of acting out for television. The other part, she's acting because I think she's been truly wounded, and she just really has not found a way to really process her wound or how to move forward, with the person who wounded her, right? Which is even harder. So anyway, that's all I got. Yeah, guys, I hope you all guys really enjoyed it. I'll see you all next week, because we don't have, we don't have Mayfair Witches, so I'm done with that. So now I'm down to 1 video a week. So anyway, don't forget to drop in your comments. Let me know. Again, I'm not saying my opinions are always 100% accurate, or my perception of what's going on is always accurate. So I love to hear what you all think about these episodes, or what you want. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next week.